So today we're going to play a game that is all about getting to know yourself even deeper, the quality of you, the taste of you, the vibration of you, and of course many of the games that we do are definitely about that because it's important stuff. But today I just have some different wording. We're just going to kind of go at it from a different angle and see if that makes it new, because often it does for me. And the terms we're going to use have to do with like sound and like tuning your strings. Let's say that you are an instrument, or let's say that you vibrate at a certain frequency or something like that. I mean, I know people do use that kind of language in spiritual development. And we can get out of tune, and we can feel out of touch with ourselves or out of step, out of alignment. And those usually have this like negative connotations, but I just kind of want to dial it back a little bit and say, hey, it's just as simple as an instrument and it needs tuning. There are times when, and I've recently even felt like I'm out of tune, like things just sound off, they feel off, and nothing is sounding beautiful, and it's usually because my strings are out of tune. The strings of me, the things that make me hum, are out of tune, and I need to stop and tune them and take the time, take the stillness to listen, stop and listen and like play each of them and, hear if they are in tune and tune them to get them back into a place where, oh yeah, it feels better, it sounds better, everything is back in tune in this instrument. And so before we could even do something like that, we would kind of need to have a feel for what the strings are. What are the things? What are the strings of me and what their tune is like? We'd have to know, in order to tune an instrument, you'd have to know what are the strings on this instrument. Is it A, G, D, and E, or what, and what do those sound like? What is the sound of A and what is the sound of G when it is in tune, so that we know how to tune it. So that's kind of what we're going to play with today is, what are your strings and what do those strings sound like? And so that we can tune our instrument, we know like, okay, let me go through, and we can, like when we feel out of tune, we can go through the things that we end up finding as our strings and check in with them and see how they sound and go through them one by one. And, because we know what they sound like. So that's what we're playing with. Our game is, what are your strings and what do they sound like? And so how to do it, it is like a very open-ended exercise because kind of only always. But go through and start finding what are the things that are my aesthetic. Okay, and I want to make a clear distinction. I don't just mean like, oh, well, I like black and I'm goth and, just like, don't give yourself, it's not the labels on the outside because those can be limiting. And so in a way, I also want you to really, we wanted to use the music example here because it's like, non-verbal and not attached to labels or like a persona. We are trying to find the notes, the sounds, or we could also say the color palette, like what colors are on your palette? What palette do you like to paint with? Ask yourself what you're drawn to. And it may be physical things at first, like I'm drawn to books, or I'm drawn to being outside, or I'm drawn to greens and browns and, things like that, just anything. And you don't have to get like logical with it. Just what are you drawn to? What do you find beauty in? Like the beauty of the music that these strings are playing, that helps us decide which strings are on the instrument. And what things give you pleasure? What things give you enjoyment? Which things are you drawn to? What is your aesthetic? Which aesthetic reaches out and grabs you? And again, I'm not saying like write yourself a template for what kind of chick you are, or what kind of dude you are. You're trying to get past that because we're not trying to like put more imposed limitations. We're trying to get into that nonverbal realm. And that's why I said don't be logical and don't do anything or say anything that you have said in the past. For example, don't start pulling out your career like I'm a writer, I'm a this. I mean, I don't know, if you're drawn to pens and papers and writing and, then we're going to keep diving. We're going to keep diving. So maybe if you really feel sure about like something being a part of your persona, like I'm a mother, and it's not just a part of the created persona that you have used in the past or the talking points that you generally use when trying to give people an idea of who you are. But no, you're really answering. And if it comes through strong when you're saying, what is my aesthetic, or what is my frequency, what is my sound, what are the strings on my instrument. If it really comes through strongly, like writer or mother, okay, cool. But then let's keep asking for all of them. All right. If you are like, I'm really drawn to books. Why? Is it the story? Why are you drawn to books? Is it because you love escaping into another story? Is it because the intimacy that a book allows you that maybe real life exchanges don't, a real glimpse into somebody's world? Or maybe it's because of the cozy comfort and associations of stillness that you associate with books, because you get to like stop and read and, sink into a lounge chair or sit by the fireside or have your coffee cup, or, but it's like treating yourself, or comfort, or like I said, even just like stillness, like making the other things in the world stop. Which things do you like? Because the books aren't going to be the string, right? Because strings are like deep chords that run through your being and your vibration. We've got to find deeper. It's not going to be books, that's our aesthetic, although those things get to, naming your aesthetic gets you to those chords or those strings. So it could be that stories or deep, intimate connection with people is the string. Or maybe the string does have to do with comfort, or maybe the string has to do with stillness and making the other things in the world stop. What are the deeper components? And, same thing goes for the things that are typically your title, like mother. You might use that typically, but like dive deeper. Or writer, what is it that makes you want to be a writer? Because you want to tell the truth, right? So truth might be a part of that. It might be the string. Or is it to do with having a voice and mattering, being heard, something that's like boldness, maybe that is a part of it. Or maybe it's like craftsmanship and artistry and skill and creativeness and something more along those lines. And then I'm going through mother too. Let me think. Is it because you like to be a leader or guide? Is it because of nurturing? What is it about mother that is your aesthetic? What appeals to you, right? Because a different mother might identify with or, be drawn to a totally different aspect of being a mother. Maybe it has to do with like a feminine archetype that they see as feminine or female. Maybe it has to do with sort of really being needed and caring for things. Or maybe it's a gift giving, like really giving a gift of nurturing, and like giving gifts is all what you love about being a mother. So I just went through some examples so that you could get some ideas of how to go deeper with it, Like I said, don't be too logical with it. Just start saying the things. And look in all the places, right? Because we're trying to discover these deep, deep chord strings of who you are and the sound of your instrument. If you're like, I'm into browns and greens, like, are those earth tones? Do you also like being out in the nature, like natural world, Is that really, some deeper facet to it? Or do you just love the feeling of being grounded and this like solid, sure, secure kind of feeling? And earth tones give you that feeling, like rock, you know, that, or dirt that's just like firmly there under you. And so ask yourself, like, no question is off limits. Dig in all the zones and start getting to the stuff that really becomes, you know, like, yeah, this is my aesthetic. This is my chord. These are my strings. This is what I find beautiful. This is what I find pleasurable. And there are no limits to how many strings you can have. I mean, even if you're thinking of an instrument and you're thinking, oh, they have like a limit of strings. Like, I mean, sure, you want to really get at the root. You don't want to write down like 30 different strings that all are sort of linked in. You want to reduce the fraction, you know, like linked in by one common string. You want to get to the common string, but you might like just, first of all, you know, just write down tons of things. Think of anything that you like, even if it's something like coffee or pizza, but then you just keep chasing it down and finding the common strings. So you can go through several different phases where you're like reducing the fraction, you know, reducing what you've got to something that's a more common point. So, you know, you've got 50 things you've listed and you reduce it down to 25 and then look harder and harder and harder and you might be able to reduce it down to 10, or it may stay at 15, or it may go to 5, you know. But maybe when we're not thinking of it as like words or constructs or philosophies, and we're just thinking of it as aesthetic and sensations and things that we're drawn to and beauty and pleasure, and then we start naming the things, even if they're just things, and then taking a look at underneath those things, what is it that we're drawn to about it? You know, like, I love sad movies. What is it? Do I like the sad color palette of life? You know, do I kind of like to be touched? I think, you know, it's like, I like to feel my own soul, spirit, whatever. I like to feel touched, and I don't mind if it's sad or happy touched. Like, I just like the touch. I like to feel like sensation in my soul or spirit, you know. And so I start to get in there and start, you know, deciding, what is it? Okay, that's a deeper chord. All right, so I've got these chords, and, you know, make a list for yourself. Make a list, refine it, play with it, come back to it another day and see if you can't find new things. Or when you notice that you're drawn to something new, then, ooh, you might have gotten a new chord, because that's allowed, or a new string. That's totally allowed. And that's the fun part of growing and expanding and being inspired in life. And so when you're drawn to new things, come back and figure out what's the thing and how does that make it like a chord on my instrument. But basically, this is for you so that, like I said at the beginning, when you feel out of step, when sounds in your life just don't sound good, they just sound off, when you're feeling low energy, when you're not feeling like as much beautiful, resonant vibration, that's what's happening with an instrument. When its resonant vibration is not, you know, really as rich as it could be, it might be out of tune. Stop and tune your instrument. And don't let it get too far. Don't let it get to the point where it's like horrible cacophony noise, you know, dissonant sounds just like making your ears bleed. And then you stop to tune your instrument. Do it all the time. I mean, I'm trying to commit to myself to like do a tuning of myself like every day and tune my instrument so that it just flows so much more smoothly. Everything just seems easier and more beautiful, and the sound is just lovely. I mean, even when bad stuff is happening, even when there's a minor chord, but it's still so much more pleasurable, and just like there's ease of listening, ease of participating in a certain way. Again, even when the sounds or the chords are minor, you know, even when there's bad stuff happening or whatever, when you're tuned up and in the correct vibrational pattern for the things that are you. So you're just getting a flavor of you. Who are you by these strings that make up you, that make the sounds of your instrument, and we each have a different one. And so we have to tune ourselves daily, I think, and really know that that's a part of it, and that it's a part of enjoying yourself and loving yourself and treating yourself well and really cherishing yourself.